Tonight's lecture is entitled The Hare Krishna Challenge, the Hare Krishna Saval, which in Hindi means question. Exposing a misdirected civilization is the subtitle. Now we may wonder what business the Hare Krishna movement has to talk about social issues. The world is going on in its own way. So the Hare Krishna movement is meant for spiritual matters, not talking about material matters. Well, in Bhagavad Gita, the whole Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna in response to Arjuna's social commentary on contemporary topics of the day. Arjuna proposed some political adjustments to counteract or preempt the social turmoil that he saw ahead. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought on political grounds. Who will get power? The Pandavas or the Dhritarashtra? But Arjuna saw that apart from the immediate political consequences, the social consequences, whichever way the battle went, would be disastrous. In English there's a saying of Pyrrhic victory. It means that you win, but you lose everything in the process of winning, and your work by winning the battle, you don't really win anything, both sides are smashed. And actually it was like that after the battle of Kurukshetra. As Arjuna had predicted, the Pandavas could say, we won. Who was we? Who was left? There were the Pandavas and Krishna, and from the other side there was Ashwatthama, Kripa, Kritavarma. Practically the number of survivors you could count on the fingers of both hands. Kimva was that? Kimva Raja Govinda, Kimva Bhoga. Like this, Arjuna says that for whom shall we win the battle, the kingdom? Who will be there to enjoy it? Kimva Raja Govinda, Kimva Sukhanija. Who will be there to enjoy the kingdom and who will, So, Krishna replied that, there are social issues, but no doubt that there are political issues, there are social issues, but the overwhelming issue is the spiritual issue. Arjuna's objection to the fight was not totally invalid, but it appears that he had misunderstood the purpose for which Krishna wanted the battle to take place. Krishna wanted the Pandavas to come out successful. And as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Samoham sarva bhuteshu yame tveshnas stipriyaha. I'm equal to all. I don't particularly favor one side or the other. So it wasn't that Krishna favored or wanted the Pandavas to win because they happened to be Krishna's relatives. Generally, that's the way the world works, isn't it? Just like India politically is dominated by the Nehru-Gandhi family. And here in Tamil Nadu, the present chief minister is preparing his son to take charge. But Krishna is not favoring the Pandavas because they happen to be his relatives, but because they are his devotees. And Krishna wants that his devotees will rule the world, because the devotees will create a social atmosphere that is favorable for people to cultivate spiritual life. Otherwise, for the perspective of governance, Duryodhana was a capable leader of a capable king. Duryodhana also maintained the brahmanas, performed sacrifices, and did all the duties of a king. But because Duryodhana was opposed to the principle of Krishna Bhakti, which is the ultimate goal of life, therefore Krishna wanted Yudhishthira to take his rightful position as the king. So Arjuna's objection that there would be social chaos as a result of the fighting was answered by Krishna. That Krishna saw worse social disorder if Duryodhana stayed on the throne. If Duryodhana had stayed on the throne, there would have been if the Pandavas had just said, okay, we'll just do whatever you want, Duryodhana, and Duryodhana had stayed in his position, then society might have superficially gone on in a stable way. But Krishna saw that although the society in many ways might have seemed as if it was all right, it was all wrong. Because Bhagavad Bhakti Nasya Jati Shastra Japasavara Pranasya Dehasya Pandanam Lokaranjanam. Without Bhagavad Bhakti, whatever else we do, it may seem very good, but it's like the decoration on a dead body. So, yes, devotees should speak on social issues, but devotees' perspective is different to that of anyone else. There are various socio-economic and political theories. Most of the modern intellectual at the universities, the academia in social studies and politics, they're all Marxists mostly. Marxists. Even though Marxism has already been shown to be a total failure, the so-called intellectuals in the universities still think it's fashionable to promote that. So then there's capitalism, fascism, utilitarianism. This was an economic theory, a social economic theory, that the best system of governance is that which produces the best well-being for everyone. So actually out of these ideas, out of utilitarianism has come Marxism, capitalism. They all propose to help the humans, to uplift human society. At the present time in India, not just at the present time, but for the last, practically since I mentioned Nehru, practically since the time of Nehru, that means Jawaharlal Nehru, the direction of India has been towards industrialization, with the idea that India should develop and prosper with industry, following the Western example. And all over the world, this is propagated that this is civilization. People think that civilization means to have big factories, roads, cars, and so on. And they talk about the developed countries, meaning those that have more roads and cars and factories. Backward countries, which means that they just live very simply. And the developing countries, that means those who are just getting their roads and factories and cars together. So human civilization at the present time is considered advanced or backward in proportion to its industrial development. So the Vedic challenge is that this is not civilization. It is totally misdirected. The goal of life is not to produce more and more objects for sense gratification. The proper purpose of human life is to described by Lord Krishna. I didn't say Bhagavad Gita. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam. Vasu Durgavamitam Samharam Manusham Artadam Anityam Apihati Churam Yatetina Patetam Yatuyama Nishya Saya Vishaya Phalu Sarvatasya. Krishna says that the human birth is attained after many births. In other words, it is very rarely achieved. And the human birth is, like any other birth, temporary. And especially in the modern age, human life is very short. Nevertheless, human life is very valuable. Because only in human life do we have the requisite intelligence to consider what is the purpose of life. In other species of life, the only activities are based around ahara, nidra, bhayamaitu, eating, sleeping, mating, and eating. But in human life, one has sufficient intelligence to consider what is the meaning of life. Why is there suffering, and how can we get free from it? Material life is full of the miseries. Adhyatmika klesha, suffering caused by the body and the mind. Adhibhautika klesha, suffering caused by other living beings. And adhidaivika klesha, suffering caused by material nature. Adhyatmika klesha is some bodily difficulty. We have pain in the stomach, pain in the back. Generally we think, how can I enjoy this body? But Sharira Vyadhi Mandiram. The body is the place of disease. How many people have had toothache? Very severe toothache. It's very painful. You can't sleep at night. It's just caused by a little pus, an abscess in the gum. Just a little drop of collected pus causes so much pain. How many people have kidney stones or gallstones? Yeah, I also. It's extremely painful, isn't it? And how big is the stone? About this big. There are so many diseases. How many people have ingrowing toenails or fingernails? Ingrowing, that means it's not growing out, it goes in. It's just a little bit of bony matter, and because it grows the wrong way, it causes so much pain. There's so much suffering caused by the body. But we're thinking, how can I enjoy it? There's so much suffering caused by the mind. Especially in modern civilization. So many people have depression, schizophrenia, hypertension. There are so many people in Nadu, they go to school, and they go to college, and they get a software job in Bangalore. And the next stop is the mental hospital in Bangalore. This is not a joke, this is a fact. They think, now I'm so advanced, I've got a software job. You've got to make sure you've got health insurance, because good chance you're going to So, mental problems. Apart from people who have serious mental problems, many people suffer from distress and frustration and stress and frustration. Recently I read about in America, two people were arguing. One wanted to hang their washing on the line outside, and the other said, no, you shouldn't do it. It doesn't look good. So the argument was eventually settled. It ended when one of them shot the other one dead. Must be somewhat mentally imbalanced person to shoot someone dead. Over an argument about whether you should hang your clothes out to dry on. Adhibhautika means distress caused by other living beings. And that's always there in the material world also. But modern social civilization exacerbates it. There didn't used to be so many mosquitoes when I first came to India about 35 years ago. I think because they don't maintain the problems properly, they don't clean them, and therefore you get all these thorns which mosquitoes are breeding. And emotive place means distress caused by other living beings. So in true human culture, people try to live together in a harmonious way. And in modern civilization, it is very competitive, therefore it's very disharmonious. Everyone is trying to squash everyone else. Adidaivic place means natural disturbances. Sometimes too hot, sometimes too cold, sometimes too much rain, sometimes not enough rain. In modern civilization, they used to advertise that man will conquer nature. Nowadays there are more and more natural disturbances. The weather is very strange. For instance, in America they used to have a tornado once every few years, but now they get several every year. When the tornado comes, what will you do, scientists? They will hold out their hand. All they can do is warn the people to evacuate their home. A few years ago, there was this Hurricane Katrina, which more or less destroyed the city of New Orleans. And after that, there was so much, because the law and order was broken down, then among the survivors there was looting and raping and total animalism. It just shows that even though there was so much technological development, culturally the people were no better than animals. So what is the value of a civilization that produces lots of machines, but then the people are like animals or worse? People are like animals or worse because for all their technological development, they have simply emphasized animal propensities. Eating, sleeping, mating and defending are common to the humans and to the animals. The modern civilization has simply increased opportunities for sophisticated eating, sleeping, mating and defending. Therefore we can say that modern civilization is a civilization of sophisticated animals. Real civilization is meant for the quest for self-realization. I was quoting that verse from Srimad Bhagavatam stated by Krishna, that human life is distinguished from the animal life by the intelligence by which we can inquire into the nature of spiritual reality. We can get free from birth and death by proper utilization of intelligence in human life. Therefore, human life should be directed towards self-realization and not sense recognition. Kamasya dindriya pritir yavam jivete yavata jivasya tattva jignasa nehayas chet akarami. Bhagavatam states that human life should not be for the sake of sensual enjoyment. One should live simply for the sake of self-realization. One should live to inquire into the nature of spiritual reality. Nothing else should be the goal of one's goals. So human society is misdirected because it has missed the real point of life. They think they're very sophisticated by promoting democracy. The idea that everyone should have equal rights. It sounds very good, but it's a bogus idea. Because not everyone is equal. They talk of human rights. First of all, they should become humans. Simply having 2 legs and 2 arms and a human torso does not qualify one as a human being. According to Vedic civilization or Vedic understanding, human life begins with following 4 regulating principles. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, and no intoxication. If one doesn't follow this, he may have a human body, but his mentality is like that of an animal. before speaking of human rights, first of all become a human. All this emphasis on rights. How much rights can we have anyway? If we say, I demand the right to live forever, you can't have that. I demand the right that I will never get diseased. We can't have it. We are limited and controlled by material nature. This idea that we should have freedom. What freedom? We are controlled. We are very limited in what we can do. So real human civilization doesn't mean to try for sense gratification. It should not be based on sense gratification. Human civilization begins by recognizing that we are controlled and that we are limited. And that, therefore, we should try to understand our actual position in the universe rather than trying to control the universe. This attempt to control material nature by science is like the attempt of Ravana to build a staircase to the heavenly planets. For some time it may look that it looked like Ravana was going to be successful, but in the end he was totally smashed. So in the same way, for some time it might have seemed that technological society was going to make heaven on earth. Now we see the actual result. In every way, the world is in a big mess. There's an idea that by educating everybody will become very sober and well-behaved. Instead, people have become more competitive and selfish and exploitive. We see that the terrorists who took part in the attacks in Bombay, many of them were highly educated. The idea that science will improve our lives. As the result of all this technological so-called development, all the cities are polluted, the rivers are polluted, the oceans are polluted. Why there are so many hurricanes and irregularity in the weather is because of the cumulative pollution of the ecosphere. America was supposed to be the most powerful country, the model for all other countries to follow. Now America is finished. It's on the way down. Everyone can see it. There were so many Indians who went to America. Now they're all coming back. The idea, we shall build up India as a superpower. There have been so many superpowers. Once upon a time, the world's superpower was Mongolia. Right? No, yes. Genghis Khan. Then Iraq, which is now smashed by the American benevolence, that was also a great empire at that time. Egypt, who cares for Egypt? But that was a great empire at that time. Ethiopia, which was one of the world's most poverty-stricken places, that was once a great empire. Britain, a short time ago, was Great Britain. Now they have a song which they describe as Britain. Yesterday all my problems seemed so far away. Now it seems that they are here to stay. I believe in yesterday. This was proposed as the new British national anthem. Actually, the British national anthem is God Save the Queen. And when she dies, God won't save her from death. Then it'll be God Save the King. And many people in Britain are saying, we don't believe in any God, and we don't believe in saving the Queen. Kick them out. We don't need any Queen or any King. So like this, there have been so many empires. They build up a big empire, they conquer the world, and then by the course of time, inevitably, the whole empire collapses. And then some other empire comes in. We're supposed to learn from history about the mistakes of the past. But the only thing we learn from history is that we never learn anything from history. We just go on making the same mistakes again and again and again. So this idea, India will become a superpower, this is stupid. There's this little country, Pakistan, which has practically no industry, and it's causing so much trouble to India. They can't even control this little country called Pakistan. There's so many Maowadis in the jungle, and the big Indian armed forces, they can't control. What's the use anyway of having some big civilization based on sense gratification? Actually, India is the world's only superpower, and it always has been. Spiritually, India is the leader of the world, but Indians don't realize that. The only real superpower is Krishna. Empires come and go, but Krishna remains as the supreme. And India is a spiritual superpower because it has the knowledge of the culture by which we can connect with Krishna. So India is meant to lead the world in spiritual culture. And actually when India was following its spiritual culture, then automatically it was materially prosperous also. Why did the Europeans, the British, the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, they all came sailing all the way around Africa, missing Africa, to come to India? Why? Because India was fabulously wealthy, and the Europeans wanted to come to get silk, gold, and jewels. When India was following her culture, she was very rich. But now she has forgotten her culture and is imitating the West. So West or East, the present tendency of human society is totally animalistic. India is meant for spiritual realization, but instead they are adopting the prakshas of culture of the West. Just like I was talking about human rights. This is something very much promoted by the Western societies. Democracy, human rights. But the Vedic conception of rights is much more developed. In English there's the word citizen. It means a free member of human society. The Sanskrit word is praja. It means any living being born within the society. It's not only that humans have rights, but all living beings have rights. So these rascals, they have peace conferences, and every day thousands of animals are being slaughtered. They talk about peace, and then they break up for lunch and they're eating meat. Meat was coming from the slaughterhouse, which is not at all peaceful. They're such fools and rascals, they don't see the connection between the slaughterhouse and the slaughter in the battle. Because they are slaughtering animals, therefore the humans must slaughter each other. So our proposal is that even though you have big universities and big factories and big cities, you have no idea about how to live even as a human being. The whole society needs reorganizing on a completely different basis. Basic ideas on which modern society is founded are all wrong. The idea that life should be lived for sense gratification is a total disastrous mistake. This mistake is at the root of all the problems of modern society. Vedic civilization is based on simple living and high thinking. Vedyas is the symbol, is the pratik, or the epitome of a civilized person. He lives in some ashram, cave ashram. Lives with his wife, but very simply, without any extraneous needs. And produces so much literature for the benefit of human society. So everyone should live simply and cultivate spiritual life and act for the benefit of others. As modern civilization is based on selfishness, what can I get for myself? But real human civilization, people, they don't think so much of rights as their duty toward others. This is cooperative society rather than competitive society. Everyone should cooperate for the sake of, not simply for economic and social matters, but ultimately for spiritual realization. Human society real principle of society means it should be divided into 4 varnas and 4 ashrams. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas. You don't need to translate. So, people think, oh, this is the caste system, this is very backward. But the original Varna system is the best system for dividing human society. Anyway, human society is divided. Instead of dividing people against each other, we should divide them in such a way that they can help each other. For instance, the Brahmana caste, it's not meant simply by birth, but those who are naturally, intellectually and philosophically inclined, they should be Brahmanas. They're not meant for a lazy life to exploit others, but to contribute a spiritual and material guidance for the rest of human society. Nowadays, the Kshatriya class in India is almost totally finished. We don't find any real Kshatriyas. To some extent, maybe among the Sikhs and the Jats, and there's some like in Gujarat, there's Jadejas. There's people who join the Gurkhas in Nepal, still some Kshatriya spirit is there. In the modern society, the businesses and capitalism is emphasized. So the Vaishya castes have flourished. It's like in this area, the Kshatriyas, and in Gujarat there are the Patels, and many of the Marwaris. They're naturally business oriented. You can say it's almost it's in their blood, in a sense, their culture. So the idea of, because they're naturally inclined like that you can take a Patel, just like the Gujaratis in the 1970s, they were thrown out from Uganda, and they came to England with nothing. They were not even one rosary they were allowed to take with them. From Uganda, they were thrown out from one country in Africa called Uganda, where they dominated all the business. So they arrived in England with nothing. And in 10 years, they all had their own businesses. But not everyone would do that. Some people are more capable than others. Different people have different capabilities. Sahajam karma kavantanam. Bhagavad Gita Krishna speaks about the kind of, one should perform the kind of work that is suitable to his nature. So the Vedic division of society is scientific. It's not biased. If someone has natural business tendencies, then why try to make him into a road sweeper? Those who have natural business tendencies, they should be controlled by the Kshatriyas so that they don't use that business tendency to exploit others. And the Kshatriyas should be controlled by the Brahmanas by their higher knowledge. Brahmanas are on top of society and are to be respected by everyone because they have higher knowledge. Because they have higher knowledge, they do not have an exploitive tendency. They live very simply. They are not dependent on anyone. So this is a scientific division of society based ultimately on God realization. Modern society is totally misdirected. Simply on the bodily level. India thinks it's very good because they won some medals at the Commonwealth Games. Well, that's also there in traditional Indian culture. There's wrestling and martial arts and so forth. That's part of human culture, but it's not the highest level of human culture. Spiritual knowledge, this is the apex of human culture. There are so many universities and colleges in India, and they're just producing engineers, which means some technological, somewhat intelligent students, that's all. But the gurukuls in India, they were for producing people who understood the goal of life. So our basis of Vedic knowledge. Hare Krishna. Is there any comment, question, or sawal, protest, challenge? Everyone's stunned. Let's just see if any members of the club. Anyone like to say anything? Well, does that mean everyone agrees with what we said? What does he say? He doesn't accept the caste system. Well, we also don't accept it as it's going on in India just for exploitation, that I discussed. Whether or not you have an official caste system, you have some people who are more intelligent than others. You have some people who are more capable than others in different ways. So instead of pretending that those differences don't exist, why not encourage them and channel them in the proper way? For instance, if someone has a natural tendency to organize agriculture and business, then why not train him in that way? But for the benefit of society, not for exploitation. If someone is, by their inclination, they're more inclined to serve others, then why try to make them something that they're not? Would you rather have someone who's driving an auto rickshaw as the Prime Minister, or someone who's trained in the social, political and economic issues? The Varna system is not necessarily based on birth. It simply means to recognize that different people have different tendencies and to train them according to those tendencies. That makes sense, doesn't it?
It is reasonable, but it is very difficult to make it practicable.
That's because the whole spirit of modern society is based on exploitation. And therefore, whatever system you bring in, whether it's capitalism, communism, it will simply result in exploitation. Therefore, proper spiritual training is required. But actually, capitalism works on the spirit of exploitation. Communism, theoretically, is non-exploitive. And because it makes the mistake of thinking that everyone is equal and doesn't train people according to their propensities, therefore it ends up in exploitation anyway. Because all these man-made systems are not based on knowledge of the actual purpose of human life. They all necessarily degrade human civilization to the animal level. So without that scientific varnashram system, then anyway you get some people who are businessmen, some people are intellectuals, some people who, even though they go to school and get an education, they end up working in a factory or driving an auto. Brahmanas means intellectuals. In every society there are intellectuals. Although in communist society they often try to suppress the intellectuals, or just kill them. Kshatriya means administrator, leaders. One of them is both in capitalism, both in democracy and communism, because they don't recognize the importance of leaders, of real leaders, therefore they end up with mediocre leaders and committees to run everything, and there's no proper leadership. Because they don't train anyone in leadership, they end up with mediocre at best leaders. America is the champion of democracy. Among their recent presidents have been a peanut farmer. Among their recent presidents have been a peanut farmer. Peanuts, growing peanuts, groundnuts. And before him was a cattle farmer, killing animals, killing cows, for example. And they had a movie actor who was not very successful, like a second-grade movie actor. He became the president. Mediocre people. They're not trained in leadership. And modern society cannot properly train anyone in leadership because no one will agree to be led. They all have this idea, we're all independent. So, yeah. And then even in the communist system, there were people who were trading in the black market. In every communist society, the black market flourishes. Because people with the business spirit, you just can't stop them. And there are some people, however much you educate them, naturally they will be better just doing some menial service. This reservation system in modern education in India, it's going to be a disaster for the country because you can't artificially make people into something that they're not qualified. So the Varnashram system is a scientific system which recognizes that different people have different material qualifications and trains them accordingly. But spiritually, everyone, which is the real purpose of life, spiritual development, spiritually everyone has equal opportunity. As Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Swakarma Gatam Abhyarcha Siddhim Vindati Manavaha. That everyone, whatever, by performing their own work, their swakarma, and worshipping Krishna, they can all achieve the supreme perfection. So, in one sense, whether you are a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, doesn't really matter. What really matters in the ultimate sense is our spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. But if you artificially try to make someone a Brahmana tendency into a Shudra, or some Shudra tendency into a Brahmana, then they themselves will be very dissatisfied and the whole society will be disturbed. So let people be trained according to their propensity. They will best contribute to human society in that way. Everyone should, whatever position, they should strive for spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. Alright, thank you very much. I'm going to finish there. We'll speak about this book.
Hare Krishna channel, exposing and historical civilization. That's the title of the program. Books are available in English and Tamil in the book table. Everyone is requested to take their own copy.
We have many good books. These books are not just some imagination of some person. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam we're presenting. This is the ancient and timeless Vedic knowledge. So please fill your home with books, fill your head with the knowledge in this book, and fill your heart with the love of Krishna. That is the ultimate aim of human civilization. Thank you, Hare Krishna.